This video covers the Year 8 Percentages Fundamentals Test Preview, so these are the sort of questions you should expect to see at a C level. I'll put some time tags below with question numbers for anyone following along with the test preview. Otherwise, there's some descriptions of the sorts of questions we're answering for anyone else who wants some help.
I'm going to assume that you've got a calculator during this unit, but it's good not to be lazy and to actually understand what a percentage is, okay? So this symbol here, we all know means percent, but what we might not have thought about is what that actually means, okay? And we know that per means of, okay? But cent means 100, okay? There are 100 cents in a dollar, there's 100 years in a century, okay? So cent is 100. So if it's 15%, it means 15 per 100, okay? Or 15 of 100. So if you need to work out a percentage, you can put into your calculator 15 over 100 or 15 divided by 100. Remember, they mean the same thing. And your calculator will then spit out for you what it is as a decimal, which in this case would be 0.15. But that's not what question one's asking for, okay? It's asking for it to be in its simplest form. So our job's to come through in this case, and we'll divide top and bottom by 5 and simplify the fraction to 3 over 20. Question 1b, it's asking us to change the fractions into their simplest form. So let's turn this into a fraction, remembering that that means per 100, so 430 of 100. Okay, and then we could divide top and bottom by 10, and we would have 43 tenths. It would be quite acceptable to answer this as 4 3/10 as well. Question 1c is asking for 3.6%, so we have to turn that into a fraction as well, which would look like 3.6 over 100 or 3.6 100ths, and we can't really do that, can we? We're not allowed to have a decimal on top in a fraction. So what we might do is we might multiply top and bottom by 10 just to make them a bit bigger, because that would make it 36 1,000ths, which we are allowed to do. Then if we just go ahead and divide top and bottom by 4, we will get an equivalent fraction of 9 250ths. Question 1d is asking for 0.4%. So again, we'd end up with 0.4 100ths, which we're not really allowed to do. So we're going to times top and bottom by 10 just to make it 4 1,000ths. So we're allowed to actually do that. And then what we'll do is we'll divide top and bottom by 4. And we will end up with 1 250th as our answer. Question 2 wants us to turn a fifth into percentages. Now, there's a couple of ways of doing this. One way of doing this would be to turn that into a 100, because we know that's a percent, okay? So if I multiply that by 20, that number will become 100. But anything I do down there, I have to do to the top. So the equivalent fraction is going to be 20 100ths, which is 20%. Question 2b might be tricky to do without a calculator. If you work out the equivalent fraction to this, it's a third. If you put either of these fractions into your calculator, and so just say 1 divided by 3 or 25 divided by 75, it will spit out 0.3333 repeater. The 3's go on forever. Now, to get this to go into a percentage, you've got two options. You can either multiply it by 100 in your calculator, or you can just remember that you just need to move the decimal twice, okay? And the answer will be 33.333333 forever percent. Question 2C is asking you to turn this decimal into a percent. Same as question 2B, really. You can either just remember to move the decimal twice, or if you struggle with that, just do the opposite. And in your calculator, just type this in and multiply it by 100, and that will give you it as a percentage, so 55%. Question 2D is a good one. Don't get tricked by these ones. You notice that there's a 0.6 here. This is why it's really important that you may double check it in your calculator, but remember that over here in this question, this was actually 55 over 100, okay? That is the equivalent fraction of that decimal. So over here, this one really is 6 over 100, okay? Or you've remembered to just move the decimal twice, and that is going to give you 6%, 6 per 100 as your answer. Question 3A is asking you to turn this percentage into a decimal. Now this is really nice and easy if you remember the rules, if you understand what you're doing. Remember, this is really just 65%, okay? So 65 100ths. So if you just say 65 divided by 100, you'll get 0.65. Again, great skill to learn, just to remember to move the decimal twice. It'll make things really fast when you're trying to calculate percentages later. 3B, 7%. Remember, this is actually 7%, okay, or 7 on 100. So you can either put that into your calculator, or you can remember to move the decimal twice, and you will get 0.07. Question 3C is hard to work in this format. The first thing I'd do is turn this into a decimal. So hopefully you might know that 3/4 is 0.75. If you don't, you can just pop it into your calculator. And that way we can just treat it in the same way that we've done the other questions. You can divide by 100 to turn it into a decimal format. You can do that in your calculator, or you can just move the decimal twice, and you'll end up with 0.1675. Question 3D turns 4.2% into a decimal. Divide it by 100 in your calculator, or move the decimal twice, and you'll get 0.042. Question 4 is where it's really powerful to be able to move between percentages and decimals. So if you can't do that, go back and watch question 3 questions, okay? Because this is useful when you go shopping and to work out your taxes and that sort of thing. So working out 14% of 650 is just clumsy in the calculator. So turn this into a decimal first. So it will become 0.14 multiplied by 650, okay? And then if you just pop that into your calculator, you'll end up with 91 grams. Question 4B, a couple of ways of answering this. For the higher order thinkers, if it was me working this out without a calculator, I'd work out what 10% of that is, because that's nice and easy. That's just 580, but I'm not chasing 10%, I'm chasing 5%, which is half of 580. So I know that the answer was 290. For the people who need to use their calculator, which is fine, convert that to a decimal first, so it'll be 0.05, and then multiply that by 580. And if you put that into your calculator, you will end up getting $290. Right, when you need to do question 4C, and you've got greater than 112%, this is really good for being able to work out things like GST or your pay rise or something along those lines. So you still convert this to a decimal, but when you move that decimal place, it will end up being 1.12. Okay, so when you put it in your calculator, you can still just divide that by 100, and you'll get 1.12. Multiply that by 3 kilos, and you'll end up with 3.36 kilograms. Now what's really happening here, remember, is that it's saying you've got the original 3 and then you've got an additional 12% of the 3, okay? And that's where this answer comes from. Alrighty, so we asked for 3.75% of $150. This just means we'll turn this into a decimal. So 0.0375 of is multiplication, okay, 150. And then you can just pop that into your calculator and you'll get $5.63. Five B is a bit of a weird question. Probably not a very realistic sort of question, but it doesn't matter. You don't need to get confused because it's just 30% times 25% times 600. So let's just turn these into decimals and it'll make life a bit easier. So this will be 0.30 multiplied by 0.25 multiplied by 600. And then you can just pop it in your calculator and the answer will be 45. Don't forget your units, which are grams. Right, question 6 is a good one. It wants you to increase $250 by 45%. Okay, so this would be great when you got things like a pay rise or something along those lines. When you're going to increase this, you got to remember you don't want to lose the original amount. You still want that $250 plus an extra 45% of this number, okay? So when you put it in, you're going to have to do $250 multiplied by 1.45. In other words, what you've actually got is a 145% increase, okay? You've got the original 250 and then you've got an extra 45%, okay? And then you just pop that into your calculator and you'll end up with $362.50. Okay, question 7. There's a short way and a long way of doing this. If you want to see the long way of doing this, go and have a look at the answer sheet that's on Josie, okay? I don't like it. I think that by this stage, hopefully in primary school, you've done friends of 100 and you're pretty good. So let's say that we had this value of 6,800 meters. We are making that smaller, or we're making that 30% smaller, okay? We're taking 30% of this away. Now, rather than try and work out what 30% of this is and then subtract it from this, which would give us the answer, but we're prone to making an error in there, I would say that if I took 30% of this away, I still have 70% of it left, okay? So instead of taking 30%, what I'm going to do is I'm going to work out what 70% of this number is, okay? So I want to know what 70% of 6,800 is, and then when I put that into my calculator, I will find that I get 4,760, okay? Oh, not forgetting meters. The alternative way is to work out what 30% of that is and then subtract it from this. So what you'd really be looking at is you'd be looking at something. Now, rather than try and work out what 30% of this is and then subtract it from this, which would give us the answer, but we're prone to making an error in there, I would say that if I took 30% of this away, I still have 70% of it left, okay? So instead of taking 30%, what I'm going to do is I'm going to work out what 70% of this number is, okay? So I want to know what 70% of 6,800 is, and then when I put that into my calculator. Righto, question 8A, I've gone and bought a skirt and it's been marked down to $120 from $140. So what I might do is I might work out how much I saved to begin with. Okay, so my discount is going to be 140 minus 120. So I saved $20. All right, let's work out what percentage of the original price I've saved. So I will say I saved 20 of the $140. And I'll put that into my calculator, and we'll find that that will give me 0.142857. Okay, and then all I need to do is just find the percentage discount, okay? It's not as a decimal. So I can change that into a decimal by multiplying it by 100, and I'll find that my answer will be 14.29%. Question 8b is similar to 8a. I've bought a book this time, and I've saved some money. It was only $35.50 instead of $50. So the first thing I need to do is work out how much money I actually saved in order to work out what percentage. So I might say that my discount was $50 minus $35.50. So I know that I made a saving of $14.50. And then to work this out as a percentage, I'm just going to have to work out what $14.50 of 50 was as a percentage. So I'll say $14.50 of my original $50. And if I pop that into my calculator, that will be 0.29. So if I times that by 100 to bring it into a percentage rather than a decimal, I know I've saved 29%. Okay, question 9, we're starting to get into the tricky stuff. So for those of you that paid attention in the last unit, we can use algebra to solve this, and I think that's probably the easiest way. So we know what the final price of this garment is, and it's been marked up by 60%. So this might be the store's profit. They might purchase it for a certain amount and then increase it by 160% so that they profit this 60% part of it, okay? So we're going to have to work backwards to find this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shift this over so you can see. I'm going to let X be the original price, okay? Because I know what the shopkeeper's done is they've taken the original price and then they've increased it by 160%, okay? I'll put a 0 here to make it clear, but you don't need to do that. So the original amount and an additional 60% of this original amount made $320, okay? And now what we can do is we can just use the balance method. So we can divide both sides by 1.6, and we'll find that the original price, once we've put that into our calculator, was $200. Okay, 9b is very similar to 9a. There's a number of ways of doing this. Have a look at the answer sheets as well. This is just my way. I think this is the best way. And this is where learning to write algebraic equations is really useful. Okay, so the new price of this item is $2,400 and it's been marked up by 60%. So we're trying to find out what the original price was before the store marked it up. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're again going to let X be the original price because we don't know what that is. And we're going to write a little rule or sentence, okay, that explains what the shopkeeper's done. So the shopkeeper's taken the original amount and then they have increased that by 160%. Okay, if you prefer working in fractions, go and have a look at the answer sheet because the answer sheet's worked this in fractions. And that has resulted in the new price of $2,400, okay? Now, it's just a sentence. The original amount was increased by 160%. So the original price is still there, and then 60% of that price added to it, okay? And now we just balance method. It says times, so I'm going to divide. I'll divide both sides by 1.6. I can put that in my calculator and I'll be left with the original price, which was $1,500. not forgetting my units. Okay, question 11 is a long one. We're going through profits and losses, and then we're having a look at how you calculate the percentage of your profit or loss. So we first of all have to decide if this has been a profit or a loss. It's been a profit because I bought something for 60 and I managed to sell it for 300. But let's have a look at how much of a profit that is. So my sold price was 300 and my original was 60. So I know that altogether I have profited I've profited $240. Okay, and this is a positive number. Okay, in contrast, if you have a look at the next one, we're going to suffer a loss. Okay, so this one's going to be when you do your 100 minus 125, you're going to end up with a loss of 25. See how that one's a negative number there? Okay, so I don't jump around too much. In the first part, we've decided we've got a profit of 240. We took the sold amount and subtracted the original amount, and now we have got that it's 240. Now, to calculate the percentage of profit or loss here, what we need to do is we need to take the amount that we profited or lost, which is 240, and divide it by the original amount. Okay, so the original was 60. And if you pop that in your calculator, you're going to end up with 4. Okay, that means that it's increased fourfold or 4 times what it was. But when you go to put that into a percentage, what you need to do is you need to multiply that by 100. Okay, so it has undergone a 400% increase. Okay, it is now 4 times bigger than the original, or 400% of this original 60. Okay, in the second one we decided that we had a loss. Okay, so in the second one we took the final amount and we subtracted the original amount, and we had a loss of 25%. Okay, now what we might decide is in this first question we'll write the word profit here. Okay, and I'll show you why in a minute. This one, we've lost 25 of the original 125. Okay, so I'm taking the 125 from over here. And then when I've put that into my calculator, it's spat out 0.2. Okay, that's the decimal. I want to turn it into a percentage, which is going to be 20%. Now, when we're talking about percentages, we don't usually use negative numbers here, okay? So it's not clear that it's a loss. So we need to make sure that we identify here that we've made a loss, okay? So that we don't get confused. And at this point, it's probably getting pretty boring, so I might just pause and skip ahead. And here's this question finished up for you to check your answers. The decimals don't change the system at all. You just put them into your calculator as you see them. Just remember that when you're looking at this as being a fraction, it's just this divided by this. So you can just dial 12.15 divided by 14.85 into your calculator and then convert it into a percentage.